Welcome to this episode of Two Rock Radio. Today, Anna and Jeff will be sitting down to talk family history, the origins of Two Rock Ridge, where we are now, and where we're headed.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Two Rock Radio. I'm Jeff.
And I'm Anna.
And today, this is our initial podcast from Two Rock Ridge Farm. What we're going to deal with today is we thought we'd talk a little bit about the history about where we are, how we got here, what we're doing now, and what we hope to do in this summer. So we started the farm ourselves we started construction about 10 years ago in June of 2011. Anna, why don't you tell them what happened that first summer?
What that was like?
Yeah.
When we lived in the camper in the parking lot. That was super fun. Me and Bethy and Emily all slept on the little couch, and Mike slept on the folding out table while we built the foundation.
Anna's correct. What we did was, once we put the road in to get the house, to get up to the house lot, to save money, we had been renting a house for the first year that we were back in town. And we bought a fifth wheel camper, had it installed here. We had a porta potty brought in, and we set up an outside eating area. And basically, we lived in a camper till the house got built. Isn't that right?
Yep, that's right. I remember when we first moved in, me and my sisters were huddling in the one room, and we would watch DVDs on Mom's laptop when we go to bed, but we didn't have any power or hookup yet.
Okay, so everyone knows we have a log cabin, and it's not a kit. The logs were milled in Maine, and they're regular dimensional lumber, so to speak, as in it's not a kit. When the logs came, they came from anywhere from 6 to 16 foot long. They are shaped, and they were set in with the splines and the dados to put them together. But you assembled it as you needed the pieces. You just cut them. When we built the house, we did have like the cement contractor. We had that poured. We had foundation work done as far as digging the hole and putting the earthwork in. That was done by family members. And a lot of the skilled trades was done by family members as well. But all the wood construction was basically done by us. And what is not a log was, again, all dimension lumber that was milled locally. And we had it shipped here from the next town. And that's how we built the house.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I remember doing some very oddly specific parts. Like we all got into those very uncomfortable and warm. They remind me of hazmat suits to tar the side of the house.
Yeah.
To insulate it before we put all the wood around the outside of the base of the house.
Oh, that's when I know what you're talking about, when we were doing the foundation work.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, when we were sealing the foundation. Yes. Yeah, what she was talking about is tarring the foundation. I had gotten some Tyvek suits to keep everybody somewhat clean, and we just painted the outside, and then we had backfilled around that. So.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that was a messy job. And I remember chiseling out the wood to fit a window. And when the house was done, the other one I remember is under the table we're sitting at right now. Mom and I meticulously filled the floor and used magic erasers to clean up the wood boards so that I think it was caulking we used to fill the cracks.
Yep.
Wouldn't, be all over the place.
Yeah. So we luckily got done in that time period that we allotted. We started June 1st, and we moved into the house just before Thanksgiving 2011. Now, when I say we moved into the house, we had a picnic table, we had lawn furniture, and a wood stove. And that was it. That was all we had. We got our power, which is solar. We got that installed after Thanksgiving. Though it was actually 2 days after Thanksgiving we got that installed. And we progressed from there. It was we all lived on one floor for a period of time. borrowed a bathroom next door. We then, just throughout that winter, finished out the inside and made it more livable until we got where we were for the next spring.
I don't remember how done the house was in that spring, but I do remember when we moved in and we were all very excited to be in a structure instead of the camper. But like I said, I don't really exactly remember where we were at, but
That one summer kind of ruined camping for the rest of us for the rest of our
for,
lives.
yeah,
That was a lot
the
of that
rest
was
of
a
our
lot.
lives. I don't want to sleep in a camper ever
No,
again.
no, no. That was not a fun experience. It was something I wouldn't. It was something I'm glad we did, but I never want to do again.
Mm-hmm.
So, but since then, that next spring, um, Anna's sister, my daughter Beth, we planted our first garden. We was just a little 20 by 40 garden. We went down and I tilled up a small area, and we planted some peas, beans, and whatnot like that.
I can't picture that in my head either, but my memory is not very good. I spent a lot of time wondering why I was at a different school. That was my primary focus because I moved in the middle of high school, so I'd spent most of my schooling at Bonnie Eagle in Saco, and then I moved in the middle. And as the angsty teen that I wasn't really paying attention.
This is true, and we just put her through a whole year of heck trying to make things get this thing up and running. But everybody actually pitched in really well. Mike did a ton. Our son Mike and his brother did a ton of work working around here, up on stage and up on rafters and stuff like that. Um, it was good. It was a good family experience. It was something, like I said, it was something that I'm glad we did. I'm glad we'll never have to do it again. At this point of the podcast, I did want to mention one particular person, Stephanie, my wife's father, my father-in-law, Brad. He was instrumental in this whole project. He is one of those guys that can do just about anything in the trades. And he had built a house before. I've done construction projects before, but never to the extent of taking it from blowing a road in to putting shingles on a house. Um, all that the whole thing was a big project. I've built things, but never to that extent. He was here every day and was able to teach along with getting stuff done, and was able to make things flow very efficiently. Um, and the craftsmanship that he came out with was great. Um, as we got to big projects, Steph's family is a lot of them are in the trades, and they all showed up on, on days when we were doing projects. I'll use putting the rafters up as an example. They showed up at 7 o'clock in the morning. By 7:15, they had a plan. 7:20, the generator turned on. 7:30, the first rafter was headed up over the roof, and by 11:30, we were done leaving. They just work so well together that they know what they're doing. I was up in the peak with Steph's uncle Joe, and along with being a carpenter, he's also a school teacher. He was up here in the rafters with a belt, hammer, and tool bag on, and that's it. And we're setting rafters, and as we're hanging off the rafters, putting them together, he's instructing, going, so this is why this angle is like this, and how you want to nail this is like this, and when you true this down, you do this. And it was amazing. You all you had to do was keep your mouth shut and ears open, and you would learn a lot working with this family. So kudos to my wife's family, and a big thank you, because they're a huge part of what got this house done. So that was building the house. It was a long process. Like I said, it's something that I'm glad we did, but I'm glad we never have to do it again, because this is our forever home.
So we live on family land, a great amount of acreage that used to belong to your dad, grandpa, and we were fortunate to move here, and Aunt Sandra was the same way. But how did that come about? Really, I'm not sure on the details of how that was decided.
Okay, so my Anna's correct. Um, my mother and father, Don Lorraine Grinnell, they moved to the farm next door. They moved. Dad was a town guy. He lived his whole life in the town of Washington, and after he and Ma got married, they run into a couple of different houses. But then in 1952, they bought this old farm next door. And to give you a picture of it, it was the quintessential Maine farmhouse. A great big main house with a long L attached to a garage that was attached to a very large barn that set back about 100 150 feet up off the road on a small hill with pastures and fields all around it. um, they bought, like I said, they bought it in 1952, and it came with the buildings and 300 acres. And besides working off the farm, Dad had any time between 30 and 40 head of cattle that he had here, that he ran a small dairy farm operation. And he did that for a number of years till sometime in the, I can't remember because it was before my time, but I want to say right around 1964, the barn was struck by lightning, and unfortunately, the barn burnt, and it burned up into the house before they were able to stop it. Um, Luckily, all the cattle were outside at that point, so they didn't lose any of the cattle or any of the other animals, but they did lose the farm. But they rebuilt a small ranch house down next to the road, and that's where they lived ever since. And I've been here all that time. So we built in a section about a quarter of a mile down the road from them, where our house is located now, was a small ridge between a front field, which was primarily a hay field and a squash field. He also raised squash for canning. And when I mean a field of squash for canning, it was anywhere between 12 to 15 acres in one field, 15 to 20 acres in another field. These were all what we call factory squash, that if you saw any cans of one pie that make the squash pie filling, that's where they went to. That cannery used to be down in Waldoboro. The field that's behind us, that was his main pasture, and that's where he ran cattle out through there. And over the years, he did a lot of different things. Like I said, he worked off the farm, primarily as a tractor mechanic, salesman, and whatnot, and working in the ag industries. But he always had the farm here, and he did things. They cut Christmas trees, they raised the squash, they had logging operations that they would do occasionally. But cattle was always Dad's thing. And for a lot of, and so after he lost the farm, lost the barn to the fire, he didn't have it. Then in the mid 90s, we built another small barn, and he got another small set of steers. And that's where he started going back into, and that's where you start to remember him having the oxen. Dad went out of the dairy. He went more into raising and doing a little bit of beef, but he always had pulling oxen that he used around here for actual work.
That's the biggest part I remember. I couldn't remember if I actually saw them or if I just have been told so many times that I just kind of pictured it in my mind, because I know what the setup over there is like now. It's very easy to picture, especially now that we have cows too.
And that was one of the things of us coming back here, was when we moved back here, my and dad had gotten advanced in their years, and Ma was getting a little bit sick, so we moved back to try to help take care of them because things had started to get to the point where they couldn't do that anymore by themselves easily. So that was one of the reasons that we did move back. Um, it was it's been a lot of work. After we got the house built, then we had to start working on getting things back working again. A lot of the equipment had been sitting idle for a lot of the time, such as tractors, harrows, plows, all that sort of stuff. It really hadn't been used a lot. So we needed to get that fixed up, on top of doing things to finish out things here for the house. So those first few years were a lot of work.
So we covered a little bit of history, which is always good, but I know a bit more about what we're doing now. I thought maybe we could talk about that a little bit.
Absolutely. Why don't we do that? That's what would be more fun.
All right. So we started out more in the moderny time now, with potato farming, which I think was inspired very heavily by the first little patch of garden that you and Bethy started together, right?
Yeah, it did. Growing potatoes has always been kind of something I enjoyed. Um, that was one of the other things that was it was kind of a history of a thing here. Dad always had small acreage, wasn't huge, but it was enough. It was between a half to an acre of potatoes that he would raise. Where he had the room, he just kind of raised all the potatoes for the family, and they would all get together. And he had an old horse-drawn potato digger that had been converted over to be pulled behind the tractor. And his brother, my uncle Jim, they used to plant potatoes. They would all have their own. They'd plant them in the spring, and Dad run the harrow and cultivators through them, and then in the fall we'd run the potato digger through it, and everybody would get all their potatoes out here. And it's just one of those little things growing up that I liked it. It was fun. It was a thing to do. So that's how we got back into. Started with 2 rows, and then we went to 4, and then we went to, well, a little bit more. Well, then people said, well, could we buy some? I'm like, yeah, I guess so. And we just kind of moved up from there to, we started buying seed in bulk, planting multiple varieties, planting some niche type things such as the fingerlings, um, and moving up into planting anywhere from 1 to 2 acres of niche potatoes that we would grow for around here.
How many rows did we plant last year? How many did we do?
Last year, I can't remember. I think 44 rows at one field. One field had 20 rows at 150 feet long. The other one had 22 rows at 100 feet long. Basically, we planted 500 pounds of seed.
That's right. That was the number I could remember, was 500 pounds.
Yeah.
But and planting the potatoes and people asking to sell them is how we started the farm stand, which is another project that we're still doing.
Exactly. Yeah. It started out just selling red potatoes in the spring to the summer people went up around the lake and the camp. That's what we just started selling, those small, literally out of on the side of the road, basically. And then we just moved along to, well, then we started doing it out of the sap house. And then we kind of outgrew that. And then that's when we did the farm stand that we started last year.
Yeah. And I started helping out with that a couple years ago. I think it was mostly Bethy's thing at first because I didn't know a whole lot about it to begin with, but now it's a little bit more of a full blown operation in the spring for maple syrup, and in the fall for other produce. We did garlic and onions and carrots this year, thanks to Spears Farms.
Yes.
Pumpkins, those are a huge thing, but I don't know if pumpkins are planned for this year or not.
Oh yes, yeah, we're still going to do the pumpkins. We a few years ago, to expand the operation a little bit bigger, we partnered with another farm that's a big market farmer. Um, we couldn't manage all with just the equipment that we had. We couldn't effectively take care of all the land we had, so we partnered with them, and we started planting pumpkins with them. We still did potatoes, we still did other things, but the huge thing we had was pumpkins. And it happened to be the first really big year we did it. Um, People kept asking us, can we come and pick them? I said, well, we just never really set up that operation. So the next year we had the pumpkins again. We had about 12 to 15 acres of pumpkins that went to Spears Farms and us, and we opened the fields up to pick your own. And that happened to be the first year of COVID.
Mhm.
So it was an outside project. It was an outside activity that people could come and do safely. And it turned into a huge, huge thing that people really seem to enjoy. It's become a thing every year. People are looking forward is to come, and we do like a fall thing. We open up about the first week of Labor Day weekend in September, and then we go right till Halloween, and people come and pick your own pumpkins, and it's turned into a huge, huge thing. Um, on the side of that, we also do pumpkins for that are what we call culls, that we pick out. They might have blemishes, might have a bad spot, bad stem, whatever, whatnot. We cull those out, and so they don't go to waste. We sell those to local farmers for animal feed.
Mhm. We do the big truckloads right at the end, and we feed them to our own animals, which is good too.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep.
And our local wildlife, our porcupine friends, who's just eating holes all through those pumpkins
Yes,
all
we do.
fall.
Yeah, we do. We do quite well supporting the local wildlife. Um, and I guess that's probably Anna just mentioned it. That's another good lead in. We'd been mainly focusing on ground crops, with a little bit of stuff raised in pots and stuff. Now we've moved to. We also have a small greenhouse that we're doing stuff in. We also moved to raising livestock. That was another whole thing that we did. Um, this was Stephanie's project, but she started with 6 chickens, and those 6 chickens moved into 12. And then we got meat birds the following year, that we got 20 meat birds. That moved into another flight of birds later in that year that moved into 40. And then we've been progressing up ever since. Last year, we processed over 100 birds, and we currently have somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 30 laying hens.
That's right. Mom gets so many eggs, she doesn't know what to do with them all.
So we do, um, the birds go in cycles as far as egg production. Sometimes we get enough to sell. Other times they're freeloaders and they just kind of do their own thing. But we that's kind of an up and down thing. But we also sell eggs, and raising chickens is another thing that I didn't really plan on doing. I'm not a big bird person, but that's Steph's thing, and she enjoys it. We took a year off last year, but for the previous 4 years, we raised pigs. We started with 2, raised those, had those taken care of. Then we did 3. Then we moved to 5. The biggest number we've had so far is 6, and that was 6 too many. That was um, again, I'm not opposed to pigs. They're just one of those things. It's not really attached. I'm not able to get enthused about pigs. So we took a year off, mainly because last spring, what did we do?
Oh, last spring, we was that when we got the cows?
That's when we got the
That's when we
cows.
got the cows. Yeah, we decided. I was there for the decision, and it felt like a big moment.
We had talked about it for a lot of time about getting back into the cattle business and bringing cattle back here to the farm. Um, we Steph and I had found an opportunity. We went and looked at the cattle, um, and these were Scotch Highlanders, a different breed that's up until recently was a little bit endangered. I wanted to get something that was easy to take care of. I'm not milking anything, so we wanted to stick on the beef and cow calf operation. So we talked about it, talked about with the family, everybody was so behind it. And so last May 2021, our first two Highlanders, Rosie and Willow, from Highland Farms in Troy, got delivered. And that truly was a big day here. There was a lot of people in everyone in the family, and a lot of people in town were very, very happy to see cattle back here at the farm again. It was like something that had been missing for a long time, and it's just kind of fun to have them back again. So, and when we got them, they were pretty field wild. You couldn't do too much with them, but we've, as a group, worked with them a lot, and it was good. I'd been around cattle, and so I knew how to do it. But a lot of the rest of the family, Anna, a lot of people had not been around and handled a lot of cattle. So this has been a good learning experience with these two, and we've got them now. So they'll never we got them a little bit too old to be halter broke, but you can get them up. They'll come to you now. They'll come up. They'll talk to you. Well, we talk to them. They just stare at us, but it's a good. They have good personalities. We're able to interact with them. It's a good thing for the whole farm.
Go.
So I'm looking at the clock, and we wanted to keep our episodes at around 30 to 40 minutes, and I think this would be a good break right now. We'll keep this one a little bit shorter. I just wanted to thank everyone for joining us for our initial broadcast, and hopefully you'll stick with us. We will definitely get better as we go along. We're going to have the things we talked about today will definitely be more specific. We'll pick specific topics that we're going to talk about and get some good banter back and forth. We'll have some people in that are more expert on certain things. I hope you enjoyed this broadcast. And next month, we're going to be talking about our maple sugar operation. That's one of our primary things it's the first thing that kicks us off in the spring. And we have built quite a little operation with that over the last few years. So that'll be our topic for next month. Will be the Two Rock Ridge maple sugaring operation. I'm Jeff, and
I'm Anna.
And we want to thank you for joining us, and hope to see you next time.
Bye. Hello, everyone. If you enjoyed this episode of Two Rock Radio or had something you wanted to share with us, check out our link tree in the description of this episode for all of our available social media platforms where you can keep up to date on farm ongoings and podcast episode updates. Thank you for listening and for your continued support. We'll see you next time.